The Silk Road Revival by Anantara Chatrium. In the early dawn light, the bustling city of Kunming stood poised on the edge of change. The air buzzed with electric anticipation, the kind that crackled when the promise of progress took form. The city was alive with the sounds of construction. Metal clanged, machines roared, and the rhythmic thud of hammers echoed off concrete. The completion of the new high-speed rail line, a critical artery for the Belt and Road Initiative, was just days away. Amidst the chaos, Yang Wei, a seasoned engineer with a streak of stubbornness, surveyed the gleaming tracks that slashed through green hills like a silver serpent. Despite the optimism swirling around him, Wei felt a gnawing unease that had lodged itself in the pit of his stomach. "Focus on what's in front of you, Wei," he muttered to himself, wiping sweat from his brow. He had invested years into this project, and the last thing he wanted was to be the weak link in an operation that could alter the landscape of trade in Southeast Asia. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice that cut through the cacophony. "You're losing your edge," joked Mei Lin, his assistant, flashing a teasing smile. Her energy was infectious, and for a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to smile back. "Less banter, more work," Wei shot back, though his voice was laced with warmth. They knelt beside a section of the track that needed realignment. "Isn't it exhilarating? The moment we finish here, it'll change everything." Mei Lin's eyes sparkled with ambition. She was driven, fueled by the desire to prove herself in a male-dominated field. Wei met her gaze, sensing the weight of her aspirations. Success isn't just about speed, it's about safety too. The unease coiling in his gut tightened. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a shadow lurking just beyond the horizon of their triumph. Meanwhile, across the waters in Bangkok, Agent Vera Rojanaprakarn watched the news with a critical eye. The recent headlines were buzzing with excitement over the rail line, but her focus lay elsewhere. Deep inside the Thai intelligence agency, she was tasked with monitoring a more sinister undercurrent. "Have you seen this?" Vera called, her voice low and urgent as she beckoned her partner, Surya, into the room. Surya, a grizzled veteran of the field, glanced at the screen. "It's just infrastructure hype, Vera." "You don't understand. It's not just tracks and trains," Vera insisted, her intensity palpable. "There's talk of encrypted data drives hidden in the cargo. If they contain identities of deep-cover agents, we're looking at a disaster." Surya crossed his arms, skepticism etched on his brow. "You think they'd be that careless?" "It's not about carelessness, it's about ambition." Vera's voice trembled with urgency. "China wants to secure its influence in the region, and they'll do anything to protect their interests, including using us as pawns." Surya pondered her words, the reality of their situation sinking in. "So what's our move? If the train derails, we might have a chance to intercept the drives before they fall into the wrong hands. We need to be ready." A flicker of determination ignited within Surya. "Let's say you're right. When does it leave?" "Tomorrow morning," Vera replied, her tone grave. "We need to set our plan in motion now." As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the horizon in hues of orange and purple, the atmosphere shifted within the train depot. Wei and Mei Lin completed their last adjustments to the rail line, the sense of accomplishment palpable. Yet Wei's instincts screamed that it was too good to be true. Just then, a commotion broke out a few yards away. A group of men in dark suits, their expressions steely, moved through the sight like wolves through a flock of sheep. Wei's heart raced. These men didn't belong here. He exchanged a worried glance with Mei Lin as they watched the agents approach the delivery truck parked ominously nearby. "What do you think they want?" Mei Lin whispered, her voice laced with concern. "Perhaps they're inspecting the cargo," Wei suggested, though he felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him. One of the men, tall with an air of authority, slid open the truck door, revealing crates marked with red labels. The sight sent a chill down Wei's spine. It felt wrong. "Something's off," he murmured. The lead agent began barking orders, his voice cutting through the evening air. "Secure the area. No one gets in or out until we've completed our inspection." "What the hell is going on?" Mei Lin shot him a panicked look. "I don't know," Wei admitted, dread coiling in his gut. "But I think we should." Before he could finish, a loud explosion shattered the night, sending shockwaves through the depot. Crates exploded outward, scattering wooden fragments and debris. Smoke billowed into the air, choking the atmosphere with chaos. "Run!" Wei shouted, grabbing Mei Lin's arm as they sprinted toward the concrete barriers, the world around them erupting into confusion. In the heart of the chaos, Vera and Surya were already in motion. They had picked up whispers of a possible sabotage, a rumor that had sparked paranoia within their agency. As they sped toward the site, Vera's mind raced through worst-case scenarios. "Do you think they're going to derail the train?" Surya asked, gripping the steering wheel. "If they're desperate, anything is possible," Vera replied, her voice steely. "We need to get to that train before everything goes to hell." As they approached the scene, their path became obstructed by debris, and they were forced to maneuver through the chaos. The sounds of shouts and alarms rang in their ears, the urgency of their mission becoming more palpable with each passing moment. A sudden figure darted past them, nearly colliding with their vehicle. It was one of the agents from earlier, his expression wild, panic-stricken. The sight sent a surge of adrenaline through Vera. They couldn't allow anyone to escape with the data. "Stop!" Vera yelled, but the man pushed on, ignoring her. Vera and Surya exchanged a glance, their intentions sinking in unison. "Let's move," Vera ordered, leaping from the car. The cacophony reached a fever pitch as they joined the fray, weaving through the chaos of shouting men in suits and startled construction workers. The air filled with acrid smoke, and the smell of burning rubber burned their nostrils. On the other side of the chaos, Wei and Mei Lin ducked behind a stack of crates, adrenaline coursing through their veins. "What the hell just happened?" Mei Lin gasped, her eyes wide. "I don't know, but we need to find out," Wei replied, looking around cautiously. "If they were here for the cargo, we can't let them get it." Mei Lin nodded, fear and determination blending in her gaze. "Then let's move." In the midst of the chaos, the atmosphere crackled with danger. Plans were crumbling and motivations were laid bare as the hidden stakes emerged from the shadows. The railway, once a symbol of progress, now stood on the precipice of catastrophe, a tangled web of espionage and ambition coiling tighter with every heartbeat. As the night descended, they were all caught in the maelstrom, agents, engineers, and shadows of ambition alike. The first sign of danger had appeared, and with it the pulse of conflict quickened, setting the stage for a race against time through the mountains of Thailand. With the train's departure looming, the stakes were higher than ever. Secrets lay buried within its cargo, waiting to be uncovered or obliterated. The Silk Road revival was more than a journey. It was a crucible where destinies would clash and lives would change forever. And as the smoke began to clear, the characters found themselves entangled in a web of ambition and betrayal, the allure of power tempting. The chaotic scene began to unfold like a twisted tapestry, each thread woven with urgency and treachery. Vira and Surya barreled through the debris, determination etched into their features, but the fray was overwhelming. Shouting agents stumbled around them, some scrambling for safety, others desperately searching for the data that could shift the balance of power across nations. "Stay close!" Surya's voice broke through the din, but Vera was already scanning the area. Her eyes darted over the faces of the throng, searching for any sign of the man they had seen dart past their vehicle. "Where the hell did he go?" she muttered, pushing deeper into the tumult, driven by instinct. Her heart raced. She had witnessed the lengths to which people would go for power, and it terrified her. The fear that coursed through her was not just for herself but for the consequences of failing to retrieve the data. Meanwhile, Wei and Mei Lin crept low behind the crates, exchanging frantic glances. The acrid smoke swirled around them, a tangible representation of the chaos threatening to engulf their lives. "I swear, if we don't get that data back," Mei Lin began, but her voice trailed off, uncertainty gnawing at her resolve. "It's not just our lives on the line," Wei interjected, his brow furrowed. "If that data gets out, it'll expose more than just our identities. We'll be hunted down like animals." The weight of his words hung heavy between them. Mei Lin clenched her fists, the adrenaline fueling her fight-or-flight response. "Then we fight. We need to keep moving," she urged, glancing over the edge of their hiding spot. They had no time to waste. Inch by inch, they navigated the labyrinth of chaos, weaving through agents too distracted by their own panic to notice the two desperate souls determined to reclaim their destinies. Vyra! A voice pierced the noise, and she pivoted, locking eyes with the familiar figure of her supervisor, Lou. His expression was grim, eyes dark with urgency. "The data, it's critical we recover it. The agency believes it's being extracted as we speak."
Vera felt a chill run down her spine. Extracted by whom?
Unclear, but we suspect they might be part of the syndicate from Singapore. We need to intercept them, now. He gestured toward the remnants of the wreck. "Let's go!" Heart pounding, she nodded, racing toward Lou as he began directing agents.
"Surya, stick with me," Vera shouted, her voice barely rising above the chaos. "We have to secure the perimeter." Surya fell into step beside her, the air thick with tension as they navigated through the wreckage. As they reached the center of what was once a bustling hub, the train's twisted metal carcass loomed over them, a ghost of ambition now trapped in destruction.
"Over here!" Lou's voice cut through the chaos as he pointed to a group of agents gathered around a small hatch. The urgency in his tone set Vera's instincts on fire. "What are they doing?" she asked, her eyes narrowing.
"Looks like they might have found something," Surya replied, quickening his pace. They joined the group, their breath hitching as they caught sight of the hatch. The agents were prying it open, revealing a small compartment beneath the train. Vyra's pulse quickened as the possibility of the data being inside flickered in her mind. As the hatch creaked, an unsettling silence fell over the group. Then, just as it popped open, a gunshot rang out, echoing through the chaos. Vera's heart dropped as she instinctively ducked, adrenaline flooding her body. "What the hell?" Surya shouted, eyes darting around for the source.
"Get down!" Lou ordered, shielding himself behind the wreckage. The atmosphere shifted. Panic surged as agents scrambled for cover. Vera's instincts kicked in, and she grabbed Surya, pulling him behind a nearby beam. The world turned hazy, cloaked in smoke and fear.
"We have to move," Vera yelled over the noise. "They're after the data. We can't let this fall into the wrong hands." Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man with a determined stride and a look of cold calculation. Vera recognized him immediately, one of the higher-ups from the syndicate, a ghost from the past that haunted her agency. "Damn it," she whispered, feeling her blood run cold. "It's him."
"You know him?" Surya asked, fear and anxiety etched into his features.
"He's dangerous. If he gets the data, we're all fucked." With a sudden burst of energy, Vera sprang from her cover, heart racing as she charged toward the man, her instincts screaming at her to act. She could feel the weight of her fears pressing down, the shadow of her past threatening to consume her. "Hey!" she shouted, drawing his attention. He turned, surprise flickering across his features, and for a split second they locked eyes, a moment filled with unspoken history and unresolved tension. Then he grinned, his expression chilling, as if the chaos around them was merely a game. "You shouldn't have come here, Vera," he taunted, the words dripping with malice.
"I'm not afraid of you," she retorted, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her veins. Every ounce of her being urged her to run, but she stood her ground, defiance sparking within her. With a sudden movement, he reached for something concealed at his side, and Vera instinctively dove back behind the beam. Bullets whizzed past, the sound sharp and jarring, igniting panic around her once more. "Keep moving," Liu shouted, rallying the agents. "We can't let him escape." The tide turned, agents surged forward, a wave of determination washing over the chaos as they sought to reclaim control.
"We need to split up, flush him out," Lou strategized, eyes scanning the area. "Let's go," Vera shouted, adrenaline propelling her forward. They dove into the thick of the chaos, maneuvering through the wreckage as the sounds of gunfire echoed in their ears. Surya followed closely, both of them driven by a fierce determination to recover what they had come for. As they moved, Vera's mind raced with possibilities, fears intertwining with hope. She had always known the stakes were high, but this was a new level of danger, a palpable threat that rippled through her veins, igniting her resolve.
"We can't let him win," she muttered under her breath, conviction hardening her resolve. "We won't," Surya replied, a fire igniting in his eyes. Together they pressed on, weaving through the chaos, hearts pounding in rhythm with the escalating stakes. On the other side of the debris, Wei and Mei Lin had managed to slip through the throng, moving cautiously as they sought to find a way to retrieve the data. The air was thick, each breath tasting of smoke and fear. But they pressed on, driven by the nagging sensation that failure wasn't an option. "Did you see where they went?" Wei asked, scanning the area. Maylin shook her head, eyes wide. "No, but we can't give up. It's here. I can feel it." Suddenly they spotted the small hatch that had been pried open, a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. "There?" Wei pointed, urgency flooding his voice. "If we can just get to it before anyone else does." "We have to move now," Maylin urged, adrenaline coursing through her. They sprinted toward the hatch, hearts racing as they dodged debris and surging agents. The chaos around them surged and receded like waves, an unpredictable force threatening to drag them under. Just as they reached the hatch, a figure emerged, a shadowy silhouette with a mask obscuring his face. He stood there, tall and imposing, the flickering light casting an ominous shadow that danced across the ground. An unsettling quiet followed the cacophony, as if the chaos had paused momentarily, holding its breath for what was to come.
"You're not getting through," the figure said, voice low and gravelly, sending a shiver down Wei's spine.
"Who are you?" Wei demanded, his bravado faltering as the figure stepped closer, revealing the glint of a weapon in his hand. A quick look exchanged between Wei and Maylin, fear coursing through them, thick as the smoke that twisted in the air. Their eyes darted towards the hatch, a lifeline in a sea of danger.
"We don't have time for this," Maylin urged, edging toward the hatch, determination etched on her face. "We need that data." The figure laughed, the sound grating against their nerves. "That's where you're wrong. You're out of your league."
In that moment, the air felt electric, charged with the weight of choices that had led them here. They had all come to reclaim something, to recover what was lost, but now they stood at the precipice of a confrontation that could shatter everything. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be," Wei said, raising his hand slightly, a sign of surrender that tasted bitter on his tongue. He was hoping to buy time, to think. Something was off, and they were missing a critical piece of the puzzle. "We are here for intel, not a fight," he added, his voice steady, though his heart raced like a drum in his chest. The masked figure tilted his head as if considering wise words. "You should know by now this isn't just about intel anymore. It's about power. My power." A shudder ran through Maylin as she realized they were up against someone whose motives were deeply rooted in personal ambition, a player wielding influence like a weapon. "Nobody cares about your power," she shot back, her voice sharper than the knife hidden in her boot. "This is bigger than you." The figure stepped closer, the darkness of his presence swallowing the space around them. "You're naive if you think this is just about the data. It's about survival, and right now you're standing in my way." The tension escalated, wrapping around them like heavy fog. The sound of distant gunfire echoed through the mountains, a reminder of the chaos unfolding beyond their confrontation. A sudden burst of noise shattered the moment. A group of agents surged into view behind them, urgency in their steps. "Get down!" Liu shouted, echoing through the wreckage. He had caught sight of the standoff, and his instincts kicked in. "We're running out of time!" The masked figure whipped around to face Liu, eyes narrowing like a predator sensing a threat. "You're too late," he growled, his tone filled with disdain as he raised his weapon. Without thinking, Maylin lunged forward, tackling the figure to the ground. A struggle ensued, a flurry of fists and frantic movements as they fought for control. The world around them blurred, the sounds of chaos fading into a background hum. All that mattered was the struggle, the raw desperation to reclaim the data that had become a symbol of their fight. "Grab the hatch!" Wei shouted, his eyes locked on the small opening. "We need to secure it." Vera and Surya burst onto the scene, breathless with urgency. "What the hell is going on?" Vera demanded, taking in the chaos. Surya joined the fray, helping Maylin wrestle with the masked figure, while Vera's eyes darted to the hatch. "We can't lose the data," she shouted, her voice a clarion call amidst the turmoil. Then, just as they gained the upper hand, the masked figure drew a knife, the blade glinting ominously in the dim light. Time slowed as the knife gleamed, a flash of metal that threatened everything they had fought for. In a split-second decision, Vera lunged forward, kicking the weapon from the figure's hand. "Get him!" she shouted, adrenaline surging through her. They managed to pin the figure down, but the struggle was far from over. The sound of footsteps echoed closer, and the urgency of their situation intensified. "Secure him," Lou commanded, his voice slicing through the chaos. "We need to extract information." The figure squirmed beneath them, rage bubbling over, but they held firm, determination overpowering the fear that threatened to swallow them whole. "You think this is the end?" he spat, his voice filled with venom. "You have no idea what's coming." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, a warning that sent chills down their spines. But they couldn't dwell on that now. Their focus was the hatch. As Surya and Mei Lin worked to restrain the masked figure, the struggle grew more intense, the damp earth beneath them shifting with each frantic movement. Mei Lin's focus honed in on the masked figure's eyes, a wild storm of fury and intent, swirling with threats that felt all too real. With each twist and turn, she felt the heat of desperation radiating from the others. The gunfire in the distance echoed like a heartbeat, reminding them that the world outside was unraveling. "We need information," Lou bellowed, shifting his weight to pin the figure harder against the ground. The masked figure grunted, trying to twist free, but Surya's grip tightened. "We can make him talk," Surya said, a harsh determination laced into his voice, the urgency of the moment pushing him beyond caution.
And if he doesn't? Vera's voice cut in, laced with tension. The loud crack of a gunshot made them all freeze momentarily, adrenaline spiking through their veins. The masked figure, now resembling a caged animal, let out a low growl. "You're wasting your time," he spat, air laced with defiance. "They'll come for you, and it will be worse than you can imagine."
"What do you know?" Lou leaned closer, his voice low, a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them. "You think we're afraid of threats? We've already faced worse." The masked figure's breathing quickened, an undeniable flicker of fear crossing his features. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. This data, it's not just about you. It's a key to something much larger. You're about to unleash hell."
What do you mean? Mei Lin asked, her voice barely a whisper. The weight of uncertainty hung in the air, the atmosphere charged with the potential for disaster. Suddenly, a series of footsteps thundered towards them, closer and louder, a stark reminder of the chaos brewing just beyond the wreckage. "We need to move," Vera yelled, glancing towards the darkening path where danger lurked.
Panic surged through their ranks as they all turned towards the hatch, the small opening now a beacon of hope amid the turmoil. They needed the data. They needed to understand the threat that loomed. "Let's get him secured," Mei Lin snapped, shifting her grip on the masked figure, her intentions fueled by resolve. She caught Surya's eye, a silent agreement passing between them. Together, they pulled the figure back to the ground as Lou rummaged for rope to bind his hands. "If he knows something, we need to get it out of him before it's too late," Lou growled, the urgency in his voice matching the pounding of their hearts. The masked figure's laughter was a dark sound, chilling in its mockery. "You think you can stop this? You're mere pawns in a game far too complicated for your simple minds." The taunts weaved through the air, thickening the tension, but there was no room for doubt. They couldn't falter. They had come too far, and the stakes had never been higher. Just as Lou finished tying the figure's hands, a figure emerged from the shadows, another agent, this one clad in all black, a weapon glinting dangerously in the faint light. The newcomer raised the gun, leveling it at Lou. "Step away from him. You're outnumbered." The air crackled with tension as the group shifted, instincts flaring. Vera stepped protectively in front of Lou, her body a barrier between the threat and her team. "We're not going anywhere," she declared, the confidence in her voice masking the deep-rooted fear that gnawed at her. "Put the gun down," Surya warned, also stepping forward, the fire in his eyes echoing a fierce resolve. "This isn't a game. We're not your enemies." The masked figure beneath them grinned, a twisted satisfaction blooming across his face. "Look at you. You have no idea how deep this goes."
"Tell us what you know," Mei Lin shouted, the urgency of her voice rising above the tension. "There's no way out for you if you don't." The newcomer hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as the masked figure's grin widened. "You think I'm the one in trouble here? The real game is far from over, and you're just the pawns."
The threat hung in the air like a thick fog, filling the space with foreboding. The sound of approaching footsteps sent a shiver down their spines, the chaos drawing closer. They had to act, and fast. "We need to secure the hatch now," Lou commanded, his voice urgent and decisive. The masked figure wasn't their only problem now. They had to secure the data before it slipped away into oblivion. With newfound determination, Mei-Lin, Surya, and Vera worked in tandem, their movements synchronized, fueled by a shared purpose. They maneuvered the figure toward the hatch, the urgency of their mission pushing them beyond their limits. But the masked figure's laughter echoed as they moved, an unnerving sound that cut through the tension. "You're too late. They'll find you long before you can even reach the data."
Enough, Vera yelled, her frustration boiling over. "You're going to tell us what you know, or—" The sound of a gunshot rang out, and Vera instinctively ducked. The newcomer had fired a warning shot, the bullet embedding itself into the ground mere inches from where she stood. "I said, back off!"
The confrontation teetered on the brink of chaos, the air thick with danger. Mei-Lin felt a rush of adrenaline surge through her veins, the instinct to protect her team overriding the fear creeping into her thoughts. She couldn't let this moment slip away. "Move!" Lou barked, his voice cutting through the chaos, urging them to action. The masked figure's defiance only fueled their resolve as they pressed onward. They dragged him closer to the hatch, where the faint light barely illuminated their path. The dark pit ahead loomed ominously, a reminder of what was at stake. As they approached the opening, the masked figure suddenly lunged forward, using the momentary distraction to kick Mei-Lin in the shin. She stumbled back, pain shooting through her leg. "You think you can stop us? You're nothing but ants to be crushed," he spat, his eyes fierce with hatred. "Get him back!" Lou shouted, as Surya lunged to restrain the masked figure again. But the newcomer was quick, and as they struggled, it became clear that time was slipping through their fingers. The footsteps grew louder, the tension palpable. They were out of time.
"We can't let him get away," Mei-Lin exclaimed, pain forgotten as adrenaline spurred her on. They had to act, and they had to do it now. As the group surged forward, pooling all their strength together, Vera caught the newcomer's eye. "Join us or get out of the way," she demanded, her voice firm, as the masked figure continued to squirm beneath their restraint. A moment of hesitation followed, a flicker of uncertainty in the newcomer's gaze. Finally, he lowered his weapon, a reluctant agreement shimmering in the air. "Fine, but this isn't over," he growled, shifting to help them restrain the masked figure further. The moment stretched, the air electric with urgency, but there was no time to waste.
"On three," Lou called out, determination flooding his voice. 1, 2. With a unified heave, they pushed the masked figure towards the hatch, preparing to secure the data. The stakes had never been higher, and the threat loomed larger than ever, but they couldn't back down. As they tumbled toward the hatch, a deafening explosion rocked the ground, sending tremors through the earth and knocking them to their knees. Dust and debris filled the air, obscuring their vision. The world shattered around them, chaos erupting as the fight for survival spiraled into a whirlwind of uncertainty. They were at a crossroads. The dust settled slowly, swirling in the dim light as Vera struggled to regain her bearings. The explosion had ripped through the air, a violent reminder of just how precarious their situation had become. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, a reminder that they were racing against time and unseen enemies. "Get up!" Liu shouted, his voice cutting through the ringing in her ears. "We don't have the luxury of waiting around." Mei-Lin groaned, pushing herself off the ground, her hands trembling. The pain in her leg throbbed louder than the chaos surrounding them, but she couldn't afford to give in to it. They had come too far, and failure was not an option. As she looked around, the masked figure they had restrained now lay sprawled on the ground, momentarily dazed. The newcomer had fallen back, clutching his weapon tightly, eyes darting in every direction as he tried to assess the damage. "Shit!" the newcomer muttered, glancing back at the hatch where the encrypted data lay. "If that was a diversion, we're already too late." "Then we need to move," Vira said, urgency in her voice as she beckoned them to regroup. "We know they're coming for the intel. We can't let them get it." A low rumble echoed in the distance, shaking the ground beneath them. A convoy, no doubt. The agency's agents were closing in, and they wouldn't stop until they had their hands on the drives. The masked figure, groggy and exposed, was beginning to stir, a menacing glint in his eyes. "Let's secure him before he regains his strength," Liu said, shifting to keep the masked figure contained. "Mei Lin, help me tie him up with something from the hatch. We need to get inside." "On it," Mei Lin groaned, pushing herself to her feet. She limped closer to the hatch, where the remnants of their supplies lay scattered. She hastily gathered rope and duct tape, her mind racing as she glanced back at the newcomer. "Why are you even here?" she demanded, frustration boiling over. "You could easily run away, but instead you choose to help us?" His gaze was steady, but there was a flicker of something. "Regret?" "I have my reasons," he replied, low and gravely, "but don't think for a second that you can trust me." "Trust isn't a luxury we can afford." Vera shot back, securing the masked figure's hands and feet. "We need to focus on recovering the data before they get it." Suddenly, an echoing shout pierced the air, followed by the sound of heavy boots thundering through the forest. "They're here!" the newcomer warned, raising his weapon in preparation. "Damn it!" Liu snapped, urgency flooding his voice. "We need to move now, or we're dead." With the masked figure tied up and barely conscious, they hefted him up, struggling to carry the dead weight as they bolted toward the hatch. Vira felt the adrenaline coursing through her, pushing her past the pain and fear. Once at the hatch, they scrambled inside, and the dim light flickered on, revealing stacks of crates and a narrow path leading deeper into the cargo hold. The sound of boots got louder, and Vera could almost feel the hostility radiating outside. "Where's the data?" Liu demanded, scanning the area for any signs of the drives. "Over there!" Mei Lin shouted, pointing to a cluster of crates marked with Chinese symbols. The group rushed over, but as they approached, the newcomer stepped in front of them, weapon raised. "What the hell are you doing?" Vira shouted, fear and anger intertwining within her. "We're on the same side." "No, I'm not," he replied, his voice firm. "I'm here to make sure I get what I need before you do." With a quick action, he opened fire, and the bullet ricocheted off a metal shelf, sending sparks flying. "Get down!" Liu yelled, pushing Vera out of the way as the newcomer aimed for another shot. "Stop!" Mei Lin screamed, her heart racing as she placed herself between them. "This isn't how it's supposed to go. We either work together or we all die." The tension hung in the air, pulsing like the thrum of a drum. The newcomer hesitated, his grip wavering. "You really think you can trust me?" he growled, teetering on the edge of decision. "I don't have to trust you," Vera said, standing tall despite the fear clawing at her insides. "But I will if it means keeping this data out of the wrong hands." "Damn it!" he shouted, the weight of the moment crashing down. He spun, aiming his weapon towards the door as a new group of agents stormed in, their faces shrouded in masks. "Now or never!" Liu shouted, lunging for the data crates. "Help me or get the hell out of the way!" "Fine," the newcomer barked, lowering his weapon and joining the fray. "But if you screw me over, it's your head!" With the newcomers distracting the agents outside, they quickly pried open the crate, revealing the encrypted data drives nestled inside. Vira grabbed them, a rush of triumph washing over her. "Let's get the hell out of here!" Mei Lin urged, fear sharpening her resolve. As they started to retreat, the door burst open, and two agents stormed in, weapons drawn. "Freeze!" one shouted, but Liu was too quick. He fired back, the sound of gunfire echoing in the confined space. Vera felt her heart racing as chaos erupted again. Bullets flew, and she ducked behind a crate, keeping the drives close to her chest. "We need to move now," she shouted, adrenaline kicking in. The agents were relentless, and the newcomer didn't hesitate to return fire. In the crossfire, Mei Lin grabbed Vera by the arm. "This way," she shouted, leading them down a narrow passage lined with crates. They stumbled through, the sound of gunfire fading behind them. They burst onto a makeshift loading dock, where the sounds of the forest engulfed them. The sky was darkening, the sun dipping below the horizon. "The vehicles!" Liu shouted, spotting an old truck parked nearby. "We can use that!" "Get in!" Vera urged, throwing open the door. But as she did, the masked figure they had restrained began to stir behind them, his eyes filled with rage. "Not so fast," he sneered, pulling free of his bindings, a knife glinting in his hand. "Shit!" Mei Lin gasped, but it was too late. The masked figure lunged at her, and in that split second, Vera knew they were teetering on the brink of disaster. "Get down!" she screamed, pushing Mei Lin away as she turned to confront him, her heart pounding. "I'm not letting you take this from us!" As the masked figure lunged, the air crackled with tension, a standoff that could change everything. The stakes had never been higher, and Vera's resolve crystallized in that moment. No matter what, the fight for their lives and the data was far from over. And as they stood, the future of their mission hanging by a thread, Vera knew one thing: whatever the outcome, they had to fight. With the masked figure approaching, the world around them blurred into focus. They were on the edge of a cliff, and only the choices they made now would determine whether they would fall or soar. She stood tall, weapon raised, ready to face whatever came next. "Let's finish this." Vera's heart thundered in her chest as she faced the masked figure, the knife glinting in the dying light. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to choke on. She could hear Lu's voice somewhere behind her, urgent and commanding. "Vera, watch out!" But she was too far gone in the moment. The world had narrowed down to just her and this man, an embodiment of chaos in the eye of her storm. "Let's see what you've got," she spat, trying to sound braver than she felt. In a flash, he lunged toward her, the blade slicing through the humid air. Vera sidestepped just in time, adrenaline surging through her veins as she swung her weapon in a wide arc, aiming for his midsection. She connected, sending him staggering back. "Damn it," she muttered, her grip tightening. "How many of you are there?" "Enough to make you wish you hadn't messed with us," he hissed, lunging again. Vera ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding another strike, and scrambled to her feet. She felt the weight of the drives pressing against her, a reminder that the stakes were impossibly high. This wasn't just about survival, it was about the lives tied to those pieces of technology. "Liu! Mei Lin! Now!" she shouted, rallying her teammates. Without hesitation, Liu charged forward, his own weapon drawn, creating a diversion that caught the masked figure off guard. "Get in the truck!" Liu shouted, covering Vera's retreat. "Go!" Vera urged, her voice edged with urgency. She took one last glance at the masked man, who was momentarily distracted by Liu. With a final inclination of her head, she turned and dove for the truck's door, her heart racing as she fumbled with the handle. Mei Lin was already inside, her eyes wild with fear and determination. "Come on," she yelled, her hands gripping the dashboard, ready to drive them out of this hellhole. "Start it! Start it!" Vera shouted as she climbed in, slamming the door shut just as the masked figure regained his focus, turning back to them with a snarl. Liu fired a round, the bullet thudding against the truck. "Go, go, go," he cried, his voice rising over the chaos. Mei Lin turned the key, and the engine roared to life, though it sputtered uncertainly in the thickening dusk. "Drive!" Vira screamed, and they lurched forward, the tires spinning against the gravel as the truck jolted into motion. Liu jumped in just as the masked man lunged for the cab, only to miss and stumble, cursing in frustration. "Get us out of here," Liu shouted, his gaze locked on the rearview mirror, watching for any signs of pursuit. The truck raced down the winding trail, the trees blurring past as night descended rapidly. Vira felt the rush of adrenaline tapering into a heavy weight of exhaustion, but there was no time to rest. They had to put as much distance between them and the danger as possible. "What do we do now?" Mei Lin's voice quivered, though her hands remained steady on the wheel as they careened around a bend. "Head to the safe house. We need a plan," Liu replied, his tone clipped, focused. Vira glanced back at the road behind them. "I don't think he's alone. They'll be coming after us." "Which means we need to figure out who we can trust," Liu said, his jaw tightening. "We can't let those drives fall into the wrong hands, not after everything." "Do you think they know about the data?" Mei Lin asked, a note of panic creeping into her voice. Vira turned to Mei Lin, meeting her gaze with a firm resolve. "They know. That's why they're after us, but we can't let them win." The road stretched out ahead, dark and foreboding, but Vera felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. They had fought too hard to let it all fall apart now. The data wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline for those whose lives depended on their anonymity. As they navigated through the dense forest, the headlights illuminated the path ahead, revealing the crumbling remnants of an old checkpoint. "There, the safe house is near," Liu pointed, redirecting Mei Lin's focus. The truck jolted over a rough patch of ground, and Vera felt her stomach lurch, knowing they were close to a place where they could regroup and strategize. "Just a bit further," Lou encouraged, his voice rising over the thrum of the engine. In that moment, the truck rounded a corner, revealing the safe house, a small, weathered cabin nestled in a clearing, its shadows dancing under the flickering light of a lone lantern. "Park it here," Vera commanded, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Maylin slammed on the brakes, and they tumbled out, weapons drawn, scanning their surroundings for threats. As they approached the door, Vera's thoughts raced. They had survived this skirmish, but the war was far from over. Inside were hidden truths that had yet to be uncovered, alliances to be forged, and enemies to be faced. "Ready?" Lou asked, his eyes steady, a flicker of determination igniting in the depths. "Let's finish this," Vera replied, her voice steady, knowing they were on the brink of something much bigger than themselves. They pushed through the door, stepping into the unknown, ready to turn the tide before it was too late. As the door creaked shut, sealing them in, the atmosphere thickened with purpose. They had come too far to turn back now. This was merely the beginning of their fight for the future. And outside, the night air crackled with the promise of impending conflict. Vera stepped into the safe house, her senses on high alert. The air was thick with the smell of damp wood and the faint scent of old tobacco. They had mere moments to catch their breath before the storm rolled in. Lou moved to the window, peering through the slats of worn wood while Maylin secured the door behind them. "We need to assess our options," Lou said, his voice low but urgent. "The data we have is worth killing for. They'll come." "We can't just sit here waiting," Maylin interjected, her brows furrowing with concern. "What if they find us before we can act?" Vera placed her hands on the weathered table at the center of the room, steadying herself. "We need to make a plan, not just react," she said. "What do we know about our pursuers?" "Not much," Lou replied, glancing back at her. "But whoever they are, they're organized. This isn't some random attack. They've been tracking our every move." Vera's heart raced as she recalled the faces from their last encounter, the men in suits, eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. "If they want the drives, they'll make a play. We need to anticipate their moves. We can't be caught off guard again." Maylin nodded, her earlier panic fading into a steely resolve. "There's a trail that goes deeper into the mountains," she said, pointing to a crumpled map laid on the table. "If we can get there, we might find a way to lose them." "Or we could run right into more of them," Lou warned, brow creasing as he studied the map. "Risky or not, it's our best shot," Vera said, her decision solidifying in her mind. "We can't just wait for them to come to us. We've got to take the fight to them." The sudden crack of a branch outside sent them into tense silence. Lou motioned for quiet, eyes darting to the window. Vera felt her heart pound louder, the adrenaline surging again. "What if it's a trap?" Maylin whispered, fear creeping back into her voice. "Then we'll be ready for it," Vera replied firmly, her gaze locking with Lou's. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. We've come too far." "Agreed," Lou responded, his voice sharpening. "But let's be strategic." They gathered their gear, mentally steeling themselves for the confrontation ahead. Vera tucked the encrypted drive securely in her bag, her fingers brushing the metal casing as if drawing strength from it. These drives represented not just secrets, but lives, people like her who had risked everything for their freedom. "Let's move," Lou said, his voice resolute as he led the way out of the cabin. The night air greeted them with a heavy stillness, the only sound being the faint rustle of leaves and their own breathing. As they stepped into the shadows, Vera felt a surge of determination. The forest loomed around them, dark and thick with uncertainty. Yet, instinctively, she knew this was where she belonged. They moved swiftly, sticking to the underbrush, careful to avoid detection. In the distance, the faint echo of an engine cut through the night, sending a chill down her spine. Lou raised a hand, signaling them to halt. "Out there," he whispered, nodding toward a clearing ahead. "I can see headlights." Vera's stomach dropped. "We have to be quick." "On my count," Lou said, his voice calm but commanding. 1, 2, 3. They dashed across the clearing, hearts pounding as they plunged deeper into the thicket. The headlights drew closer, and Vera's pulse raced with each step they took. Suddenly, gunfire erupted behind them, the sharp crack of bullets ripping through the night air. "Run!" Mei Lin shouted, sprinting ahead as Vera and Lu followed, adrenaline propelling them forward. As they fled, Vera felt both fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins. They were alive, and for the first time in a long while, she was fighting not just for survival, but for an unyielding purpose. The data they carried was a beacon of hope, a weapon against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. With each footfall, Vira realized that they weren't just running away. They were racing toward their destiny. The road ahead twisted and turned, but she could see it now, the path to a future worth fighting for. As they plunged into the depths of the forest, the air thick with the smell of pine and earth, Vera whispered to herself, "We're not done yet, not by a long shot." Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.